Now, research and advocacy campaign Youth Capital has released a new report that paints a dire picture of youth unemployment and hopelessness in South Africa. According to the report, 8 out of 10 young South Africans have to choose between looking for work and buying food due to the high cost of job hunting. To discuss the Beyond the Cost research brief, Kirsten Duncan-Williams, the project lead at Youth Capital, joins us now. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. What a disturbing thin line. It's either looking for work or surviving. How did you come to the conclusion and the basis of the study?
Thanks, Mpho. So there was a study conducted back in 2016 by a department at the University of Johannesburg called the Siaka study. It was, conducted between 2016 and 2019, and they really did a very detailed study. One of the components was the cost of work seeking. And ever since then, we at Youth Capital have been interested in this question because the cost of work seeking is a serious barrier for young people. And so back in 2021, we ran the survey. And we were shocked to find that back then already 8 in 10 young people said that they had to choose between looking for work or, putting food on the table. And so we decided to run the survey again for a longer period of time to allow for, things that might happen like taxi strikes or, the July riots, which all took place the last time we did the study. And this time we had over 10,000 respondents, which is 5 times the amount we had last time. And the sad reality is 2 years down the line, this is still the reality for young people. The vast increases in the fuel prices really driven up transport costs, and that this has had a direct impact on young people's ability to look for work.
Yeah. As you try and dig even deeper to find out some of the contributing factors and the key insights that come from this in terms of a breakdown of cost and the reality that young people in this country face, what did you find?
So we found that, young people on average, we asked about transport costs, we asked about data costs, and we asked about other application fees. Sometimes young people pay application fees to belong to a certain databases. And what we find is young people can spend 1,469 Rand a month on average if you add up the costs. If we average the figures that young people gave us, the 10,000 respondents, that young people are spending almost 1,500 Rand a month on looking for work. And 700 Rand of that is transport costs. We find that 3 in young people are reliant on some form of grant within their household to fund their work-seeking abilities. And so that also plays into where do young people get this money, How do they keep looking? And when we hear the quarterly labor force survey results, we often hear discourage workers, and we say, oh, young people are just lazy and they've just given up looking for work. But that's not the reality. When young people say they've stopped looking, it's because they actually physically can't afford to look for work.
Yeah, but besides social grants, how much of a factor do friends and family play in supporting this young person?
That's the hugest component, Mpho. 7 out of 10 young people who responded to the survey said that they relied on family members in the household to fund their job-seeking costs. And so young people are really relying on their social networks. But we know that many of these young people live in households where there is no income, where nobody works, where people are just about surviving, at or below the poverty line. And so a young person looking for work not only places a financial strain on that young person, but actually places financial burden on the entire household. And we have to think about the impacts there.
And besides giving up, Crystal, and feeling hopeless in the search, what also stood out is the 6-month period that it could take to look for employment, and that also weighing heavily on the psychological well-being of young people in the country.
Yeah, and the sad reality, Mpho, is we partnered with JobJack to run this survey. And so these are young people that are on the JobJack platform, which is free for MTN and Vodacom users. And these young people are probably more connected to opportunities. If we look more broadly at, the quarterly labor force survey, when we look at young people or how long people on average say they're looking for work, most people say they look for more than a year. So I think our subset in the sample, 6 months is a long time to be trying day in and day out looking for work. But the reality is the broader population is looking for even longer than that. And as you say, think about the mental health burden on young people. You send out CV upon CV upon CV. You beg and borrow and plead for money, and you hear nothing back. and young people are seriously facing depression and anxiety. As we know, it's on the rise amongst young people in South Africa. And they also face, stress from their families. We have a quote in the report from a young person who said, I keep asking for money and my family keeps saying, we've been giving you money for months now. What are you using this money for? You're actually looking for work because you don't have a job yet. And these are the kinds of stresses that young people are under.
Yeah. And what kind of jobs are young people looking for? I mean, we, as a channel on Newzroom Afrika, have been speaking to a number of young people from different walks of life, some who are qualified with degrees, others who went to a TVET college, others who just have a matric. But sometimes we find that those who are qualified graduates with degrees are looking for the very same jobs that those with a matric are also looking for, just for survival.
That's true. I think there's a big misconception that young people don't want to take certain jobs. But the research shows that young people are willing to work for any job, even, low-paying wage jobs. Young people are desperate. As you say, even graduates. I think because there's such a high rate of unemployment, employers can be extremely picky. I always use the example of a packer at ShopRite. And that having a matric requirement. Now, you don't need a matric certificate to be a shelf packer at a grocery store, but that's what employers are asking for because, the queue of unemployed is so big, they can be as picky as they want. And so young people are really desperate. They'll honestly take anything. If you speak to young people, they say, we'll take any job. Yeah. Just something to put food on the table.
What we did see a few weeks ago as the second voter registration drive closed and the IEC giving feedback was to say that young voters really did show up this time around. 78% of new registrations were citizens between the ages of 16 to 29, which in itself shows that young people are desperately looking for change, and they are now hoping to use their vote to exercise that change. What sort of recommendations came out of your study insofar as helping young people and opening up those opportunities?
I think that we at Youth Capital are really encouraged by the boost in voter registrations amongst young people. We've been saying to young people, if you want change, as much as you might feel the government does nothing for you, this is the way to create that change for yourself, your community, and South Africa more broadly. And so that's very encouraging for us. And I think at Youth Capital, we're pushing young people to ask the hard questions of the political parties. Young people have registered to vote now. Ask the questions. Have political parties put youth unemployment at the center of their growth plan for the country? We need economic growth and we need young people to be contributing towards the economy. And are political parties that you're thinking of voting for, have they put that at the center? And if they have, do they really understand the complexities? Because we often hear the unemployment argument get distilled down to something simple like a skills mismatch. And obviously that's part of it. But, the things that we're speaking about now, a lack of money to look for work, a lack of social networks connected to opportunities. These are the more nuanced things that get left out of the conversation but are critical to address if we want to address the youth unemployment crisis. And so I would say to young people to ask those questions, and I would say to political parties, if you want the youth vote, these are the issues, of the lived realities of young South Africans. You need to speak into those issues. And if you get a seat in Parliament, even if you don't win, even if you get 1 or 2 seats, what are you going to do with those seats to change the lives of these unemployed young South Africans?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Beyond the Cost Research Brief, Kirsten Duncan-Williams, the project lead at Youth Capital, giving us a sense of the outcome of a very important study and the recommendations that come with it as we look to the 2024 elections and the importance and significance of young people exercising their right to vote.